Hey guys, how's it going? Thank you so much for joining another webinar. And this is going to be our session to talk about the security settings on the Yeastar P-Series PBX, which is going to be our YSCSS security specialist. Okay, so it's so good to have you guys here, and I think this is about the time. So let's just jump in. All right. Now, this session is kind of like it's actually our session one, the part one, okay? So in today's session, we will basically talk about some security settings on your P-Series PBX, something very fundamental. And we're also going to talk about the security enhancement on every single one of our extensions. And later on, I will also talk about the firewall root settings on the P-Series system as well, okay? Now, guess we can get started. So let's jump in. Now, first thing first, I want you guys to take a look at the screenshot I have here. This is going to be one of my P-Series PBXs, which is deployed in the office. So you guys can see it's P570. All right. So the first thing I want to talk about here is whenever you get a new system there, a brand new P-Series PBX, let's see when you try to get started of your configuration, you want to deploy the system in the local area network. You want to, basically it's like you just want to use it, all right? So for the first step, what you're supposed to do there is, as we know, we get the default IP address of the system, which is going to be 192.168.5.150, right? So you can simply take your laptop, take your computer, anyway, use the Ethernet cable, connect with the LAN port on your P-Series PBX, and use that default IP address, which I mentioned before. So you will be able to jump into the system directly. Oh, well, by the way, as you can see here, currently I'm not using the default IP address. I'm actually using this Yeastar FQDM, which is Remote Access Service, also known as the Remote Access Service. This is a more secured way for you to log into the system. But anyway, we will talk about the RAS later, okay? I think we're going to talk about this RAS in the next session. But today, let's just keep going, all right? So whatever you use there, the RAS or the IP address, anyway, like I said, for the first time, pretty sure you're going to use the default IP address. You're going to connect the LAN port with your PBX, absolutely. Then you will be able to see something called Installation Wizard. I'm sorry, you guys can see I don't have an Installation Wizard now. You can actually see this login interface, which is posted on my screen now, right? I can use the username and the password to jump in, start my configuration. But actually, this is something I configured, all right? So for you guys, actually, once you get the new system, for the first time, there's Installation Wizard, like I said. So the point here is we don't give you guys any default username or default password. That's just the point, guys. Keep that in your mind. So this time you get the P-Series system. You don't have a default username or a password. So what you can do there is you can just use the default IP address to jump in. And how do we get started? This might be the question, right? If we don't have the username and the password. Just like I said, you will see the installation wizard. Please just follow the installation wizard, all right? Because for security reason this time, we don't give you any default username or password. We give you the installation wizard. And you guys can simply follow the installation wizard step by step. One of those steps, which is so important, is going to be the configuration of the username and the password, which means you're supposed to be the guy to set the username and the password for your system by yourself. So keep this in your mind. This one, it really matters. It basically means if you're the super administrator, you're the supervisor, IT manager, whatever, the administrator's user password could be anything. It could be admin. It could be Yeastar, right? As you like. So you guys can see I've already set the username as admin, and I also get a password. That's something totally configured by myself. So that's the first thing I want you guys to keep it in your mind, which is so important. All right, don't forget to set the username and the password. And later on, pretty sure you guys will also need to set the email address for the super administrator. So again, don't forget to set the super administrator's email address, because later on, you might probably need to get some notification sent by the system, right? So you really need the email address being activated, be configured on your system. So that's another point. So once again, don't forget to follow the installation wizard, set the username and the password, and also your email address. And by the way, about this password, my recommendation here, guys, my suggestion, I mean, The suggestion here for you guys is try to set a complex password, all right, with letters, numbers, lower cases, upper cases. Anyway, you just mix them together, make it be a little bit complex. This is good for your security. That's it, all right. And then we can basically go click on Log In, so we can jump into the system directly. Now, this is the first thing I want to talk about the security. It's not a big deal, but sometimes we just, it's real easy for us to ignore this, but this one, it really matters. Once again, keep this in your mind. So it's really important for the entire system security, okay? Now, once we're in the system, the next thing I'm going to talk about here is, let's just go check system here. All right, go click on network. Okay. So go check on network here, and pretty sure in the previous session in our YSCT training, we've already talked about this, right? So I'm going to skip this part. The basic settings is not a big deal. You can set your system under dual mode, single mode, or bridge mode as you like, right? Depends on you, actually. So I'm going to skip this part. So what I'm going to talk about now is going to be this. Take a look. The web server. Here's the thing. Now, if you guys use the IP address to jump into the system, all right, you will see something special. Now, apparently, I'm not using the IP address now, right? I'm using the RAS, Remote Access Service, with this Yeastar FQDN to jump into the system, so you won't be able to see anything posted on your browser. However, if you use the default IP address to log into the system, pretty much sure on your browser you will see there's alert, which tells you the link you're going to access is not secured, blah, 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 something like that. It's just like alert, right? The notification tells you this access is not secured. Why? Well, the reason is pretty simple, because take a look. Check on the web server here. You guys can see our system has been enabled by default. Redirect from HTTP port 80. That's the reason, right? So we use the HTTP with the IP address, redirected port 80 to HTTPS. I'm sorry, guys. So actually, this is like automatic redirection from HTTP port 80 to HTTPS, port 8088. That's it. Now, because we're using HTTPS, and we also ask you guys to enter the username, the password, something about the privacy, right? So that's just the reason. That's why your browser will just show you this alert, especially when you use Google Chrome, right? You're pretty sure you will see there's security alert, which tells you be careful. Anyway, but once again, like you said, we're just logged into a PBX, right? This is not a web server. It's not an actual server, deployed in the public network. It's just a hardware PBX deployed in your local office. Your local area network in your office. That's it. So you can definitely, just go click on proceeded. Just skip that part. Go log into the system directly. So this is the second point. I want you guys to be careful. All right. The protocol here, once again, is HTTPS. The port is going to be 8088. This is the default port for your HTTPS. So next time, for security reason, if you don't want to use the default HTTPS port, 8088, you want to use something else, you can customize it here, of course. Now, of course, you can also switch the protocol from HTTPS to HTTP. However, we don't suggest you guys to do that. Our suggestion, you just keep what it is, HTTPS. This is good for security, absolutely. Okay. And another one we have here is going to be logout time. So give it a check here. Auto logout time is going to be 15 minutes. This is by default configuration. So if you jump into the system, you never do anything there, after 15 minutes, our system will just kick you out. That's it. So this is like a self-defensive mechanism, but it's customizable. You can absolutely switch from 15 minutes to, longer, a little bit longer. Okay. So this is going to be the web server. Another point I want to talk about here, okay? All right, so let's just keep going. All right, let's keep going. Okay, now next one I want to talk about here is going to be this. Let's get back to the, I think we can get back to this, static routes. Let's give it a check here. Another thing I want to talk about here is going to be static routes. So static routes, what is this? Well, you can check on the name. It's called static routes, which basically means this is like a place for you to create a couple of rules to tell your system what is your routes, right? To handle data transmissions. That's it. That's it. That's what it is. So usually we don't use static routes. Mostly we don't use this. However, when we enable dual mode on our P-Series PBX, we might probably need to enable static routes here. We might probably need to create a couple of rules there. It depends on our local area network configuration. It might be a little bit tricky, but what you're supposed to do there is you're supposed to go check on your router, your switch, your entire local area network. Figure out what is going on there with your data transmission in this local area network, especially when you set your PBX under dual mode. So let me explain why. Usually we don't use dual mode on our P-Series PBX, first of all. Because we can use single mode, we can use bridge mode. As we know, mostly we're just going to use one interface to handle our data transmissions for both of our internet connection and our SIP connection, right? So you have a SIP trunk, you have a SIP service, you have internet access. Anyway, they can use the same port. All of our data transmissions, they go through the same port, the LAN port, right? It handles everything. However, in some areas, in some countries, things might be a little bit different. For example, as far as I know, if you got an office in Singapore or maybe Saudi Arabia, just an example, so according to the local regulation, the way how you get the SIP trunk service, the SIP trunk connection, is quite special. Service providers or carriers, they will give you they will just give you a very particular physical cable, a physical line, a physical Ethernet cable, which works for SIP trunk specifically. That's just the situation. That's just the thing. All right. So if that's the way how we get the SIP trunk, well, we got a problem now. Obviously, if we are working under single mode or, like bridge mode, we only have one interface, and this interface can only handle, data transmission, either network service or the SIP service. So you need to make a choice now, right? But obviously, it doesn't make sense. What we're supposed to do is we want to make sure our PBX, our P-Series system, is capable with both of our network connection, internet connection, and the SIP service, SIP connection, right? So for that circumstance, we are actually going to enable dual mode on our PBX, on our P-Series system. Okay, so here's the deal. If you get back to the basic settings here, you choose dual mode now. Well, you can see here, we can set LAN port, whatever you prefer there, right? For example, like I got a particular static IP address for my LAN port, and I can set another particular static IP address for my WAN port. Probably this is going to be the IP address provided by the service provider, because for the SIP trunk, authorization, they might probably give me a very particular public IP address. So I do need to configure that IP address over here on my WAN port. However, the thing here on our P-Series system is even we get two different interfaces, physically you have two ports, but we cannot handle two different networks simultaneously on the P-Series system. We can only handle one network connection. Now, under the circumstances which I was talking about now, you have internet connection. Mostly you're going to use the Ethernet cable connected with your network switch, with your router for the internet connection. And then on the other hand, on the other side, you have another cable, another particular line which provides you the SIP service, right? So that means you have two different networks. You cannot put all of them, working simultaneously on our PBX. That's why we need to set a couple of static routes here. You just configure a few static routes here to tell your system, hey, here's the destination, and I would like to handle data transmissions to that particular destination with this, with this way, to make it specific. All right, so you simply go click on Add there, set the destination here. Oh, by the way, don't forget to set the subnet mask. Obviously, that's very important. And then you guys can see here, interface. Select your interface. Because you're working on a dual mode now, you have two interfaces. Both are working, but you need to make it be more specific to tell system, hey, this particular data transmission, it go through my LAN port, and that one go through my WAN port. That's like a traffic control, right? So this is just the static route. All right. Well, once again, like I said, you truly need it when you enable dual mode on your P-Series PBX. And the reason is just like I mentioned, our system cannot working on two different networks simultaneously. All right, so you're supposed to set the static routes here, maybe one or maybe a couple of them to tell your system how to handle this. Now back to the basic settings here, you guys can see. So you can choose one of your interface work as the default interface. Then for the other one, well, absolutely you need to set the static route to tell the system to make it clear. Okay, so this is about the static route. All right, now let's keep going. Okay, so another one I want to talk about here is, it's going to be this. Give it a check here. Another cool feature we can do here on the P-Series system. I think this is not very popular, but sometimes it helps a lot, which is going to be VLAN. So virtual local area network, this feature we also support it. To be very honest, the virtual local area network is not configured on our PBX because this is just a PBX. This is just a server which handles communication. All right, it's not the server to handle network connection in your local area network. So in other words, talking about the virtual local area network, this is something supposed to be configured on your network switch, your router, anyway, those devices, not on our PBX. Well, what we can do here is if you got a particular environment of VLAN, virtual local area network, well, the good thing here is you can back on our PBX, enable VLAN, you can, put our PBX in your local, in your virtual local area network to make it as one of your VLAN client. That's totally supported. All right, so this is the deal. All right. Now, as for the VLAN, I think we can explain a little bit here. What is the VLAN? Oh, well, the full name, just like I mentioned, is called Virtual Local Area Network. So it's virtual, right? So now we might probably get a question is, hey, for what kind of circumstance are we going to use a virtual local area network? Here's the deal. For a small office, I don't think you need a virtual local area network. If you're, like a couple of guys, 10 people, 20 guys in the office, probably you don't need the VLAN. All right, because I guess just a router with a couple of switches, you can build your local area network fine. All right, and you don't need to worry about the traffic issue, right? Because you only have a couple of guys in the office. So the network speed, the traffic, it's not a big deal, right? This is just a small office. However, if you're running a, like a medium-sized business, a medium-sized office, let's say you got 200 users, 200 extensions, 200 agents in the same office, in the same building, they're going to work simultaneously. They all work together, right? So they have lots of work to do on the network. They're going to go access the public network, internal local area network, anyway. So, which makes the point is so many data transmissions, guys. The traffic will be crazy, right? So, like, if one of those guys trying to communicate with another guy, well, from his computer, we're gonna send some packets out, a broadcast, right? A broadcast to other computers. Well, this is gonna be the local area network, guys. Every single one of our endpoints are totally connected. So that broadcast will be broadcast to everyone. Now, what if you have like 10 people, 20 people, 30 people, or maybe 50 guys are trying to send broadcasts simultaneously? Think about this. Your network will be totally, crashed, obviously. It's going to be on fire. Well, not the actual fire, right? So this is just a deal, right? So for that circumstance, we really need a solution to handle this, to figure this out. That's why we need a virtual local area network. Virtual local area network. We just need to separate the local area network, make it be more specific, make it be more logical, and the most important thing here is it can help us to improve the network speed. It can help us to control the traffic. That's just the deal. And also one more thing, because you can create a couple of VLANs there, and absolutely you can make a very simple, very fundamental level network be a little bit complex, right? That means you can improve the security as well. So this is just another way for security enhancement. But Once again, this security enhancement solution is not based on our PBX. It's totally based on your local area network configuration, mostly based on your router or your network switch. So back on our P-Series PBX, it's going to be this. We can enable VLAN. So for the circumstances, like I mentioned before, if you have a situation, if you got a particular situation scenario, like I mentioned before, you want to use the VLAN, go check here, enable VLAN on your P-Series PBX, and you will be able to put your PBX be a part of this VLAN. So what we're going to do here is we will simply need to enter the VLAN ID right over here, plus the VLAN priority. So these are the things we're supposed to configure on the P-Series system if we want to use the VLAN. Okay. All right. So once again, it's not a big deal, especially based on the P-Series system. We don't need to do anything special there, but it's very important for us to enhance the security. If you really need to use the VLAN, well, just don't forget to configure it on your network switch. Okay, so this is about the VLAN configuration. All right, now let's keep going. Okay, so the next thing I think we are going to talk about here is going to be extensions. Let's back to the extensions here. All right, let's talk about some security enhancement on the extension. Okay, so in the previous session, by the way, we've already talked about the basic settings for extensions, right? So you want to add a new extension, you go click on it, you can create a new extension. That's not a big deal. But I guess we still have something left on the extension settings, which is going to be this part, security. So give it a check here. Security settings on extensions is very important, especially have some remote extensions. You want to register an extension on your PBX remotely, and pretty sure you're supposed to go check this place. Have a look. Number 1, SIP security. So if you have a remote extension, all right, you truly have a remote extension. Now, for example, like we're under the hybrid working situation now, if you have an IP phone deployed in your house, you want to use that IP phone remotely. That would be the remote extension, right? So if you try to register that extension on your PBX remotely, step 1, don't forget to enable this. Allow remote registration. All right, this one is very important. But for security reason, if you don't have any remote extensions there, please just disable this. All right, unless you have a remote extension. Otherwise, you don't need to enable this. Okay, the next one, SIP user agent identification. You can absolutely enable this one as well. So you probably get a little bit confused about this. What is this? Drop your mouse on it. You can see here's the explanation. When registering, SIP phones will send packets containing the user agent string. If the prefix of the user agent does not match the value defined here, the registration will fail. This match is, case insensitive. So example, if you fill in A-Link here, only the phones whose user agent prefix is A-Link can register this extension. As we know, for the phone registration, we're going to send a couple of packets from the phone to the PBX for the registration. So those packets are going to carry some important information. Now, this one, user agent prefix, is one of them. So if I enable this is definitely like identification, all right? If I add a user agent here, like the example mentioned, A-Link. So if I type in A-Link here, then next time if you try to register some other IP files, well, you are not going to be able to register them on the PBX successfully because they're carrying totally different user agent. So that's not going to be accepted. So this is just a way for enhancing the security, especially when you have a remote extension. Okay, then let's keep going. Another one. Another one will be SIP registration SIP registration IP restriction. Have a look. So this one we can even make it be more specific for security enhancement. IP restriction, right? So you can absolutely add a particular IP address here. So that's so clear, right? That's so obvious. Next time, if I try to register a particular phone here, and the IP address is supposed to be this one, because I just add a very particular, permitted IP address. If the IP address I'm using there, it's not this one. Well, I'm not going to be able to register on this PBX right now. Okay, so this is going to be the remote registration. Okay, now let's keep going. Next part. Next part is going to be call restrictions. Have a look here. For call restrictions, usually we don't need to do anything here because our system got an automatic defensive mechanism, which will be the call restrictions. I'm going to talk about it in the next session, all right? But here's the deal. If you want to set a particular rules here to limit some, particular extension, that's fine. You want to limit a very particular extension, you can just go access this place. Now, for example, you can disable outbound calls. So, for example, I got a particular extension. I only want him to make internal calls. Like, hey, this is just for internal communication only, not for externals. Then I can just enable this one. Disable outbound calls. So this extension will not going to be able to make any, outgoing calls. All right, another one. Disable outbound calls outside business hours. Well, I can also enable this one as well. I think this one is really user-friendly. Sometimes, out of business hours, I want to limit all of our extension users. Hey guys, this is, time's out, right? So, out of the business hours, you guys are not supposed to be able to make any external calls. Then we can just enable this one. And the last one, you can see this, disallow international calls. So for security reason, I guess, let's talk about the threat. I think the biggest threat for your security will always be the top fraud, right? Because we're talking about the PBX. So this is the central system for communication. So the biggest threat is always going to be the top fraud, right? And talking about the top fraud, mostly those top fraud are going to be something happens on the international calls. Because crazy guys, they really want to make free calls for international calls. Absolutely. So you can absolutely enable this one. Disallow international calls. Then this particular extension user will not going to be able to make international calls. Absolutely. So another way for security enhancement. All right. Next one, you can also see this. Outbound call frequency restriction. So for this rule, you can see this one. Default, which is going to be the extension, outbound call frequency. That's just the one we have on the system by default. Just like I mentioned before, the automatic defense mechanism, and that thing is called outbound call frequency restriction, which is going to be the topic we're going to talk about it in the next session. Okay. Then here we have max outbound call duration. You can set it over here, or you can just simply follow the system. So we're just going to use the system default settings. Okay. Another one, it's going to be this, outbound route permission. So for people who's going to try to make an external calls, we can also enable the outbound route permission. So you can also make your selection here, and once you enable it, then this particular extension will only be able to use some selected route for external calls. Okay, so these are all for the security enhancement on the extension settings. All right, after that, you guys just don't forget to go click on save. All right, same as usual, whatever you configured on the system, you want to make it work, go click on save, go click on apply. All right, now I'm going to skip this one. Okay. So that was all about the extension settings. Now, let's keep going. Okay, so the next part I'm going to talk about here will be this. Let's talk about the, the firewall rules, okay? So talking about the firewall rules configuration on the P-Series system, actually we have a couple of rules there, not only the firewall rules. So give it a check here. Number one, it's called static defense. Static defense is also known as the firewall rules. All right. So just have a look first. Here's the thing, guys. If you got a new system, when you jump in, when you go click on security rules here, and the first thing I'm pretty sure what you will see there is going to be the static defense here, and you will see some default rules are existed already. That's the thing I want to talk about here. All right. So those default rules, you don't have to, basically, you don't have to change anything. You don't have to change any of them. We have so many default rules there. For example, here, default private IP version 4.1, IP version 4.2. Anyway, we have a couple of rules here, right? So those rules are telling you that, hey, these are default rules. And you can see the action. It's accept. And the protocol is going to be both. Now, you probably get a question is, what protocol are we using here? So you can simply go click on add here, see the protocol, all right? The protocol here, we have UDP, we have TCP. So if we select both, means both UDP or TCP, they will be applied for this. And the action. Action, we have a accept, we have drop, we have reject. So if you choose to accept, then for any kind of, access, login, request, anyway, we're just gonna accept it. And if we choose drop, well, we're not gonna do anything, right? So if you send any packets in, we're not gonna handle this packet. We're not gonna give you any feedback. We're not gonna send you anything like error or any feedback. That's it. We're just gonna ignore it. Now, if we choose to reject, that's so clear. If we choose reject, we're gonna send you the error feedback to tell you, hey, your request is totally rejected. We're not gonna let you in. So this is the basic configuration of the firewall rules, the static defense rules. All right, now back over here. Like I said, we have a couple of default rules, so you can simply take a look. Those default rules are quite simple. Take a look. The default one, right? The default private. This is definitely going to be the default rule to tell you, hey, this is going to be the local area network, the private access, the local area network access. So for the local access, we don't want to create any trouble for our customers. So we just create 4 rules there to tell the system, those are local access. Usually, we can just accept all of them. That's it. So this is the first thing I want to talk about. For any kind of local access, as we know, unless you're going to do something bad in purpose, otherwise, for any kind of local access, that will be fine, right? It's just local access, nothing special. It's okay, right? It's under our control. So we don't want any limit there. We don't want any trouble there. So we have a couple of rules there, pre-configured by the system. So this is the first thing. And the second thing I want to talk about here is you can also see some other default rules are existed here on the system as well, which are something like this: update.yeastar.com, rmtunnel.yeastar.com. Anyway, so those things are like remote management, like remote access. Anyway, so those things are basically some rules created by our system. It's pre-configured. And those things, if you take a look, it's going to be real easy for you to figure out. Those rules are basically to tell the system that, hey, for this kind of access to Yeastar servers, we're supposed to be able to access it directly. All right, we're supposed to be able to receive any feedback, any packets, any data transmissions from those servers directly without any trouble, because those servers are so important for the P-Series system. For example, like remote access service. Remote access service is based on our remote access server, right? So without the server, you're not going to be able to have this encrypted tunnel for your remote access. So we don't want to have any problem there, right? We don't want to have any trouble there. Or maybe like SMTP server. Now, Yeastar just provides you guys a Yeastar SMTP server. All right, it's all pre-configured. So if you want to use the Yeastar SMTP server, I'm pretty sure you don't want to have any trouble there, right? So to make sure there's no problem happens in the future, then we just create all these, pre-configured rules on the system by default. We just help our customers to figure this out. You don't need to worry about anything there unless you just don't want to use it, all right? So you guys can see for the local access, it's not going to be able for you to change anything there because they are just for local access. All right, you can't change it. But for the server access, like I said, if you truly don't want to use it, you don't want to access in the server, that's fine. You can go click on edit here. You can change it. This is fine. All right. So this is the second type of the default rule. Okay. And the third type of default rule you will see here on your system is going to be something like this. It's called auto-provisioning device. So what is the auto-provisioning device? That's nothing special, to be very honest, guys. When you try to use your P-Series PBX in the local area network, I'm pretty sure you guys are going to use a bunch of IP phones, right? So for those IP phones registration, pretty sure you're going to use the auto-provisioning for the phone registration, right? So here's the deal. If you use the auto-provisioning to figure out the phone registration, then I guess you don't want to have any trouble in the future for the phone registration, for the phone connections, right? So once you use the auto-provisioning for the phone registration, then we just create this particular rule on the system automatically for helping you to make it clear, make everything clear. So you won't be able to have any trouble on it, especially for the phone registration. Now, because as we know, sometimes for the phone registration, if we got let's see, if I got one of my IP phone being blocked by accident, all right, then you know the consequence. The consequence is you will never ever be able to register this phone on your PBX successfully, right? So we just don't want to have that kind of awkward situation happens. Well, we just help you to create those, rules automatically. So you won't be able to have any kind of trouble like that. Okay? Now, after that, what next? All right, you probably want to know what next. The next thing you're supposed to do here is quite simple. You can just go click on add here, add a couple of rules as you wish. Now, for example, the default rules give you guys the all permission for the local access, right? However, for the local access, if you want to make it be more specific, like I just want to limit a very particular extension or a very particular user, let's see, a particular IP address. I just don't want him to access the system, to register a phone. Anyway, I want to make it be more specific. But that's just a special thing. All right, just one of them. So the next step is we're just going to go click on add, create a new rule here. Then name it. Step one, just name it, all right? Because you might probably have thousands of rules on your system. You want to make it clear? Name it. This is step one. If this is not that clear, you can also drop something in the description. Make things be more clear. All right. Then the action, just like I said, you have three options here. You can choose accept, you can choose drop, you can choose reject. Make your selection here, all right? Once again, like I explained before, if you choose accept, we're just going to create this particular rule for accepting all kinds of, requests. Well, if we choose drop, we're not going to do anything. We're just going to ignore it. However, if we choose reject, well, this rule will be really clear. This rule is just a rule for the limit. All right, I'm not going to accept any packets, data transmission request from your side because the rule tells me I'm supposed to reject it. Okay. Then next part, defense object. So make your selection here, right? You can set a particular rule to limit this particular IP address or a particular domain name or even a MAC address. And as for the protocol, make your selection here. All right. So for example, like if I want to create a rule for phone registration, then I might probably choose UDP because you're going to use SIP UDP, right? Then I can select an IP address here, or I can use a MAC address here. So you won't be able to use UDP to register your phone on my PBX. This is just one example. But obviously, for this part of configuration, it's really flexible. Once you figure out how does it work, once you know exactly how do we make use of those items, well, this is going to be really easy. Okay, so this is going to be static defense. All right. Now, another thing we have here is going to be auto defense. Let's talk about this. The auto defense here, it's much easier, I guess. Auto defense rule, I'm pretty sure you can see this on every kind of network devices. All right, whatever the network device you have, they're pretty sure you will have the auto defense. So this is like a automatic defense mechanism, all right? So we have a couple of rules there. For example, like for SSH, for UDP, for TCP. Anyway, we just tell you this is a default port. If you never change it on the system, then that's going to be the default port. For example, on this PBX, the SSH port is going to be 8022. That's the default. And for UDP, 5060. Default, right? And the protocol is going to be TCP, UDP. Anyway, that's all the protocol limits there. Then we have rate. So the first one, take an example. Take this one as an example. You can see here the rate is going to be 10 by 60 seconds. The meaning is quite simple. During 60 seconds, maximally, you will be able to send 10 packets. All right, through the SSH port 8022 by TCP protocol. That's it. Well, if you want to change this, you want to customize this, of course, just go ahead. You can choose the service type here. All right, it could be the service, it could be the port range. Depends on you. All right. Then you can set the particular, number of packets, which is going to be the rate. Time interval, 60 seconds. This is the default one. So this is fully under your control, right? Now, what I'm doing now is this is just going to be service, a very particular one, SSH, or Linkus, or RTP. Make it be more specific as you wish. All right. Or maybe this is just going to be the port range. That's also fine. So I would like to create a particular port range. So whatever the access request is, I don't care about it. If you try to access me through, that particular port range, I'm just going to limit you with this particular rule. So maximally, you're going to be able to send me 10 packets during 60 minutes. That's it. Well, this one, it really helps a lot for some sort of, protection, all right? Because hackers, let's talk about this. Crazy guys, usually when they try to attack your system, when they try to do something crazy on your system, they want to crash your protection. Anyway, so the most common way for them to do is they just keep sending you packets, all right? Keep sending you lots of, tons of packets, numerous packets to the same port, right? Then eventually you just cannot be able to handle so many information, so many data. You can't be able to handle that. Then, boom, your protection is crashed. That's just a very common way for, crazy guys tries to break your protection, your security. Now, here's the deal. We just don't give them. We just never give them any chance there. So we create a couple of rules there. And I don't really care about how many packets you're going to send there, all right, because you can see the rate here. If you try to send me more packets, like over 10 packets during 60 minutes, I'm sorry. I'm not going to do anything there. I will just drop you to the block list directly. So goodbye. You're totally blocked. All right, which is going to be this one, blocked on IPs. So you guys can see this. Oh, for example, this is a good example, the web login. So if someone tries to log into my system through the web, for example, like the web access, all right, then he or she just tries to log into my, through the HTTPS port 888. You guys can see this. Then we're just going to drop him or her in the blocked IP list. So you can see this is going to be the source IP address. So this is the target destination, 41.248.136.135. And expiration date is going to be this. That's the expiration date. So you can see the expiration date is going to be December 30, 2099. Time will be 23:59:59. I guess that's just going to be the permanent blocked. Absolutely. But of course, sometimes maybe this is just a mistake. All right. Sometimes, this is just like a mistake. Oh, somebody did a mistake, right? Maybe this is just one of my colleagues. Well, what now? Now you can just delete this particular record. When you delete this record, that particular guy, he will just be able to log into the system again. That's it. All right. So this is going to be blocked an IP address. This one, I guess, really happens for some circumstances. For example, I give you guys an example. Sometimes, we have a couple of extensions. Let's see. We have a couple of extensions. We just try to register them on our PBX, but it won't work. All right. Then we just keep trying, which means we're gonna keep sending packets on the system over again and again. Then eventually we just get our IP phones being blocked. Then what? Then you can definitely check over here. I'm pretty sure your IP phone's IP address is gonna be posted in this list. That's just the final result. That's just the consequence. All right. So, but it's not that popular. Sometimes it might happen. It might happen. Once again, like I said, if you use the auto provisioning, you don't need to worry about this, because if you use the auto provisioning, our system just automatically add your IP phone's MAC address on the PBX by creating a particular static defense rule, and the action is going to be accept. Totally. All right, so this is going to be blocked on IPs. Okay. All right, so I guess that was all we have for this session. All right, so you guys just stay tuned. All right, we have another session. We will finish something else, something left on our system. Okay, so catch you guys in the next one.